As the weeks pass by and the Democrats become more desperate, the rhetoric on the left has continued to amplify against Donald Trump. On the Charlie Kirk Show, Glenn Beck spoke about his concerns for Trump's safety.
I saw his security, and they have greatly beefed it up. But when I left, my security, I think, is some of the best in the world. I have my two head guys were the domestic protection, head of the domestic protection, and then the other was the foreign protection of, let's just say, a name you know, and one of the top 5 richest people in the world. They both work for me. And when they left that event and seeing Secret Service and then seeing the airport and everything else, the head of my security said, I have a very bad feeling, Glenn. And I said, what do you mean? And he's never said anything like this before. I have a very bad feeling. I'm not sure he's going to make it to January 20th. And he was specifically worried about Donald Trump's airplane being shot out of the sky. But he, as he has said, it could happen a million ways. You have the leaders of this country juicing people up. You have AI and algorithms that can so easily find. If I could say to Google today, find people in this state that are disturbed, don't like Trump already, maybe a little schizophrenic and likes guns. I could have that within a minute, the name.
Here to break it all down is Matthew Peterson, editor-in-chief of Blaze News, Erik Prince, Blackwater founder and Navy SEAL vet, and Ryan Patterson. He's the CEO of Unplugged. It's the phone that you need to know about, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But Erik, I want to start with you and get your reaction to the security concerns that Glenn just laid out.
Who's been fired at the Secret Service? No one. They pushed out the Ms. Cheadle after the first debacle in Butler, Pennsylvania, but no one else. There's been no house cleaning. So why should we expect any kind of different result? I think that's the definition of insanity. So there's been an atrophy, a rot in the federal institutions. Secret Service isn't the only one. So until there's a real change in leadership and accountability that's from top to bottom, we should expect the exact same kind of results. I have advocated publicly, because some people have said, well, he needs to be supplemented with private security. That's almost a bridge too far, because the private guys will always get squeezed, especially if a shooting ever became necessary. But supplementing the Secret Service team with JSOC operators, either from Delta or from SEAL Team 6, that is probably the most important national mission that they could be doing right now, because they're not doing a lot else. That is the best thing. And to put true hunters, predators at the outer perimeter, it takes a predator to hunt a predator. That would be my suggestion, but I don't think the Secret Service is moving an inch.
Erik, let's talk about the political future of the United States of America just for a second. We have an election going on. I want to know specifically about the time period between that election day, right, and Inauguration Day. Do you have any thoughts about whether that's going to be a smooth transition or not?
Well, when Donald Trump wins, I think you'll see a freak out of a lot of very organized leftists in a number of major cities and states. The best solution there is we have federalism and we have state governors, and they should be in charge of security in their states. They don't need the federal government to secure their areas. And I think we have 35 of 50 states led by a Republican governor. So that is at least 70% of the problem solved.
Gotcha. In terms of Trump winning then, so let's assume Trump wins, do you have any thoughts about the problem he faces just at 50,000 foot level in general? I mean, Elon Musk says he's going to help with DOGE at the Department of Government Efficiency. Of course, the main problem being, how do you actually rehab this large, monstrous thing, right, which isn't a corporation, and you can't just fire everyone?
Yes, but you can cut off the funding. I mean, ultimately, this comes down to Congress. Bureaucrats are not going to show up. Well, they're already not showing up. Remember, 70% of the bureaucrats in the D.C. area aren't even coming into the office for work. So they've continued this telework nonsense as a carryover from COVID. But if Congress stops appropriating money at these insane, unsustainable levels, the bureaucrats are going to stay home. I mean, literally, you have to cut off the funding. You have to be thalidomide to stop the beast from continuing to grow.
Well, there are so many problems out there, but one problem that you guys have come up with a solution for, at least, is our phones, because we know that our phones are listening to us, collecting information. So, Ryan, tell us a little bit about Unplugged and what the phone does, and more importantly, doesn't do.
Right. No, I think it's important to get back to the government overreach, and that's one of the reasons why the phone came to be. Post 9/11, we started to look at all of these bits of data that were out there. Advertisers had some data. We got to a place where we could find, interesting information. But then advertising grew, technology grew. We all started carrying smartphones. The amount of data that a smartphone emanates that is available for purchase by anybody with a credit card is things that would have made intelligence officers lose their minds 20 years ago. The precision with which we get there. And so one of the things that Erik and the other founders did was like, how do we stop that at the core, at the base of the phone, right? So we created our own phone, our own hardware, our own operating system that takes all of those things that we see Google and Apple doing, putting an advertising ID on your phone, all of the apps, all of the advertisements that show up on your phone. An ad that shows up on your phone has trackers in it to find out what browser you're using, what language you're using, where you are, where you went before. And we have worked to rip all of that out and build a phone that still has the convenience that you want, but is not giving that up to the world of capitalism.
Basically, you can be digitally in the world, but not of the world. So you can still communicate with your friends and family and book airplane tickets and sports scores and navigate and communicate, but without big tech collecting and harvesting and exporting all of your stuff.
So we talk about this all the time, and I just be honest about my own life, right? I mean, I've been involved in this sort of commercial cultural movement for the last few years of all the products and services that we need, given the actual environment we live in, right? But this is a leap, right? I mean, I'm still walking around with, an iPhone and many large corporations spying on me just sort of in desperation. Because once you start to look at what you need to do, there's a lot that you need to do. And so in the back of my mind, I think like a lot of people out there, I'm thinking at some point, very soon, I'm going to, go through a checklist and I'm going to do all these things and I'll finally take care of it. So it sounds like what you're proposing is this is the phone to do that. This is the time. This will take care of all your needs.
Both Erik and I travel all over the world. We arrive not knowing exactly where we're going. We get that information from somebody as soon as we're getting there. We can navigate. We can get there. I just spent a month in Costa Rica, traveled all over the country using the Up phone. All of the convenience is there. It's there and ready for you. A lot of iPhone users are scared about becoming a green text message, not a blue text message on iMessage, and that's some of what
all the familiar communications apps are usable. All the social media stuff is. The difference is they're not collecting and exporting your data. I've had many people I've talked to said, I was talking to my wife about needing a new mattress in their bedroom. And the next day they're getting advertising for mattresses.
I've had this all the time.
Imagine that phone on your nightstand listening to Pillow Talk. Come on. People have been slowly boiled like a frog. And this is your opportunity to jump out of the pot and not be boiled anymore.
One of the stories that we talk about a lot on this show, our audience is very interested still in January 6th, and rightfully so. And one of the things that we know is that people were there on the day, and years later, they're going back and trying to get all of the information off of their phone to see, were you in the Capitol? Were you not? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the precision with which they can track where you are using the GPS and the data that the advertising trackers that are built into all the apps and every website you're on is precise to the side of the house you're on. Like they can tell if you're on the right side of the house or the left side of your house. So that data is not data that they have to get a subpoena for either. It's commercially available data that anybody with a credit card can pick up. And we know for a fact that at January 6th, they dropped a box around the entire area and they picked all of those folks up. And then the thing about the data is then you can go back in time and you can see where this person came from. And you can follow them from there as long as you want to, everywhere they go. And we're sure that some probable cause affidavits came from commercially available data that anybody could buy.
And now with the FISA expansion that was just signed into law a few months ago, they don't need, now any federal agent can go to any of the companies holding this commercial digital data and demand it without probable cause and without a warrant. so they can go on a digital fishing expedition, a proctology exam on everything you've done, gone, searched, everything else for the last years with no probable cause to then start, and then they can go out of a warrant, and then they can tap your phone and all the rest. So it is antithetical to the Constitution. Congress never should have passed that. But frankly, our device is about the only antidote you've got.
And corporations that get sent these letters are not allowed to, under penalty of law, are not allowed to say they've been served one of these letters to give up data.
Yeah, it's a terrifying world in which we live. I think one of the problems you face, one of the biggest obstacles you face in presenting this to the American people is people will hardly believe it because they have been boiled. So can you say a little bit more about? I mean, do you have some kind of guarantee, or how do you describe this to people in terms of no, really, this is off. You're off the grid.
Yeah, so we're not going to guarantee anything, right? Because a lot of privacy is both, the tools that you use and also the things that you do.
Mm-hmm. Discipline.
What are your practices? What are your discipline? The thing for me that I saw was, with FISA, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF, a very liberal think tank about technology, came out and said, this FISA thing is the worst thing that could have happened to the American people's privacy, right? And so, like, this spans the political spectrum. There's no, what we can tell you is there is not an advertising ID in the phone, so there is none of that to collect. There is a firewall built into the phone, so all the ad trackers, all of that stuff is blocked if the user decides to do it. You decide how much you want to do. There's a privacy center that puts all of that at your fingertips, and there's an actual physical kill switch that separates our batteries from the electronics in the phone. I don't know if you just experienced this as an iPhone user. You turn your iPhone off, and as it's shutting down, it says, "Find my iPhone" will still work while your phone is off.
Yep.
Because your phone's not off.
All right, so if I'm fired up and I hate the government and I want to go out there and make sure that I have my privacy.
It's not a matter of hating the government.
No.
Love freedom. Love privacy.
Freedom. Don't love them collecting my data.
Yeah.
If I don't want that, where do I go and get this?
Unplugged.com. It's as easy as that. Unplugged.com. We're there. We've 10,000 phones out the door already, 10,000 more getting ready to be delivered.
It is the only guarantee you have for the First and the Fourth Amendments.
I like that. Guys, I always think back to the movie Enemy of the State, right? And then you get to the end of that movie, and it's like they drop the ball of like everything in this movie is already available. And it blows your mind. But now you guys have some common sense solutions for everyday people, so we don't have to be as scared. Thanks so much.
We even have a brick switch where if someone says, "Give me your phone, I'm here to search," you say, "Sure," and you hand it over with a certain code, and it's wiped.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Paperweight mode.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the product for align and return and the verticals that we have here. So very, very happy to have you guys here to talk about it.